Hey, Matt.
Hey, Jen.
What are you listening to this week? Welcome to Season 3 of What Are You Listening To? The weekly podcast created to foster community through music by sharing the stories behind the songs that soundtrack our lives. Some of the songs are old, some new, all good. I'm Jenn Tully, and this week I'm joined by my frequent collaborator and the co-host and co-founder of the Super Awesome Mix podcast and podcasting network, Matt Sidhom. Today, Matt and I are doing a bit of a crossover show. We're sharing some of our favorite movie songs of the 80s that didn't make it into season 1 of The Battle. So this week, Matt and I are going to share some of the songs that landed on the cutting room floor. For the best listening experience, I recommend tuning into the show on Spotify. There you can hear the show with the songs we discuss incorporated. You can also find the show on Apple, Amazon Music, or wherever you stream. But if you're not listening on Spotify, be sure to give the playlist a listen and then tune into our conversation. With that, let's get started. Matt, there were so many great songs that we had to leave off of our 80s movie soundtrack battle. We went back and forth, and narrowing it down to just 16 songs was really hard for both of us, I think.
Yes. Oh, no. It was so difficult to kind of narrow things down. And we were even, people don't know this, but we were even making changes kind of as we were going. So we'd think of something and be like, oh, should it be this song instead of that song? And even preparing for this, when it was like, hey, what just missed the cut? I was like, well, I don't know. There's like 27 songs. Should we just sit here and talk about 27 songs? It's like, no. So even creating this sort of short list for us to do this episode was really hard. So, so many great songs.
It was. You came out strong, though, with the first pick, which I'm so happy. This was one that I felt sad that we couldn't include on the original battle, because I think this movie is having like a little bit of a resurgence too. But you picked "The Goonies Are Good Enough" by Cyndi Lauper from the Goonies.
Yeah, this is a song that I don't think gets enough credit, right? This is such an incredible movie, an incredible kids movie. I remember seeing it in the theater, and I was probably like 8 years old or something like that when this came out. And it's funny because my daughter a couple of years ago was 8, and we showed it to her, and my wife kind of looked at me like, should she be watching this movie? I was like, yeah, maybe things were a little more lax in the early 80s. I don't know.
It's fine.
Yeah. But, Cyndi Lauper, best known for Girls Just Want to Have Fun. But I think this one kind of early on maybe showed she could really write a song. Like, this is a really good song. And yes, the chorus is a little, repetitive throughout this one. But I don't know. I think just musically and lyrically, it's just really good. And even when I go back and listen to it for the, 1,000th time, this, prepping for this episode, I was like, God, I still love this song.
Yeah. And again, we talk about this a lot, but I think it does such a good job at like setting time and place. It's a classic Cyndi Lauper sound, whether you like, She Bop or Girls Just Want to Have Fun or Time After Time or True Colors. Like, I think whatever Cyndi Lauper you're identifying with, you get a little piece of all of it in this song. And so I love that it's like super classic 80s, classic Cyndi Lauper. And I think that, it's fun that, that Data is having like a moment again too. The kid that was Data.
That's right. Yeah.
Goonies was in Everything Everywhere All at Once and has been like kind of resurging and having another like season, which I'm loving seeing him again.
Well, and he's on the Disney Plus series Loki too. Universe
part of the Marvel verse.
So he showed up on there as well. But yeah, you're right. It's totally cool. And this is such a like fun 80s movie, right?
Yeah.
That I'm just like, it's great. So
had
to include this one. Yes,
yeah,
for sure.
I wish we could have given more love to Goonies, because that's a favorite one of mine too. And again, actors that went on to do really big things, from Sean Astin to Corey Feldman to, we talked about Data already. Like, I mean, Josh Brolin is in it, like, one of his early roles.
Yeah, think about that. I mean, we just mentioned Loki. I mean, Josh Brolin was Thanos, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
You
So
could see
lots of good to come out of the Goonies.
That's right.
Well, your second pick was also a favorite. This is another one that I'm not sure. This was a hard movie for both of us to cut from the battle list because this is well loved and a favorite also. But your second pick was The Power of Love by Huey Lewis and the News.
Yes, from Back to the Future, of course.
Yes.
We talked about Huey Lewis a little bit when we talked about Ghostbusters because he was part of that lawsuit.
Yes.
With the song Ghostbusters. But he did Power of Love and then Back in Time. And Back in Time, I always laugh because it's as if they just had Huey Lewis watch the movie and they're like, just summarize this in 3.5 minutes. Could you do that? And he's like, sure. Yep. And
there you go.
Wrote Back in Time. But Power of Love is a little bit more, I think, universal. Like this kind of sits apart from the movie, even though it's closely tied to the movie as well. Fun fact about this one is that when Marty McFly tries out for the talent show with his high school band, they play like a heavy electric guitar version of this song. And then Huey Lewis plays the school administrator who stands up with the megaphone and stops them and tells them they're just too darn loud.
Yes. So I remember that.
Yeah. So that was a fun one. But I mean, yeah, Back to the Future is such an amazing movie. I mean, I can still watch that today, and a great song. And again, wanted to highlight. I talk about how great Cyndi Lauper is. Huey Lewis is also just like an amazing artist, and they put out so much great music in the '80s and even beyond that. But wanted to make sure we mentioned that as well.
For sure. I love like every Huey Lewis song ever. Like you can't get away from Huey Lewis and the News for me. I love it. But it's so funny to go back though now and revisit Huey Lewis. And, I've shown my daughter the Back to the Future movies, like we still love Back to the Future, but he was like a dad even back then, right? Like I think about thinking of Huey Lewis when I was a kid and I'm like, I know he wasn't, but he just always, it was like if your cool dad was in a band, it would be Huey Lewis in the News, like that's what I've always, and I love it. But I feel like this song is kind of his, maybe, I don't know. I don't want to say it gave him street cred. That seems like a funny phrase to use in reference to Huey Lewis in the News, but I feel like it elevated him in a different way, being tied to the Back to the Future movies. And so I think that this song kind of is a culmination of everything that is great about Huey Lewis, and why people liked his music and why it resonated so much. And I think when Back to the Future came out, it just opened his music up to a lot of people that wouldn't have known it otherwise.
Yeah, and to this day, this is probably the song that gets the most airplay. So in the '80s, they definitely, with the sports album, they had a lot of like radio hits, but nowadays I think it's probably this one that still makes the rounds. And so that's where you're right, this probably does tie people to Huey Lewis more. It's certainly more enduring than maybe some of his other songs, but if you go back and listen to his catalog, and like I said, even well past the '80s, they were still, I think, making some pretty good music.
Yeah. And there's a great documentary that I watched a couple years ago about Huey Lewis that's really worth checking out. He was a jazz musician before, and now he's like, I want to say he's legally deaf. Like he's like can't hear.
Yeah, he can't perform. He can't perform today because of some hearing loss that he's had, which is kind of sad. But luckily he's still alive and
writing music
doing
things like to still in the vein of making music and doing what he loves. But that was a really interesting take on Huey Lewis as well. Well, this next song we both like. This was a late cut. This might have been the last song that we cut out of the battle because we really felt strongly about having it in. But I think that 9 to 5 kind of bumped this one out of the brackets for us. But this next song is quintessential 80s. You cannot have an 80s movie soundtrack conversation without mentioning it. And it's St. Elmo's Fire, Man in Motion by John Parr.
Yeah, I mean, this song gets me fired up every time I hear it, but I also then laugh if I watch the movie and or music video, right? Like, and so that kind of, knocks it down a peg, if you will. The music video is amazing because it's kind of a bunch of scenes from the movie, but then you also get John Parr kind of walking through the cast and interacting with them. And I kind of laughed thinking about, at the time they filmed this, John Parr is the most famous guy in the room.
Right. Nobody knew, like, Demi Moore or...
And now, like, if you go to YouTube and you watch this, you're like, oh my gosh, everybody's in this movie. Who's the guy singing?
Right.
It's like, no, that's John Parr. Yeah.
Yeah, he was the one. Well, and just even having that kind of access, like, can you imagine now, like, the Marvel verse, like, you know, like having all of the Marvel characters interact for a music? You'd never get that talent in the room. You know what I mean? Like, that would just never happen, ever.
Have a song specifically written for Avengers Endgame and then film a music video with, like, Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Pratt
Scarlett Johansson.
All of them, yes.
Yeah, Chris Hemsworth, like, all, just they're all happen. Just hanging out. It wouldn't happen.
No.
So that's a unique, like, a time and place thing also for the 80s and music from 80s movies. And like, we haven't really gone here yet because it's a dangerous place to go with songs from 80s movies, but like lyrically too, this one is especially 80s. You know, it opens up like, growing up, you don't see the writing on the wall, passing by, moving straight ahead, you knew it all. I'm like, if that doesn't capture like the innocence and arrogance of youth, right? Yeah. Like, it's all right there.
Oh, it's incredible. It's incredible. No, you're exactly right. Like, this one, you know, we could say some songs like Power of Love, like, you can hear it now and it's like, oh, this is a good song. All right, I can get into this. It's like, there is no doubt when this song was written.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, and then you have that classic 80s like crescendo, you know, that builds up with the saxophone and the synth and the electric guitar combo, like, you know, to him building up to the, like, just once in his life, a man has his time. You know, it's just like so triumphant that you're like, yes, my time is now.
My
John
time
Parr.
is now. I am with you. Yes.
Yeah. So I feel like this one is just, again, this is one of those songs where I've heard it 1,000 times and I still won't skip it if it comes on.
No, without a doubt. Yes. Great song, but definitely as we, you know, our fellow co-host Sammer, we made him watch St. Elmo's Fire and he hated it and thought there were a lot of problems with it. But it's still pretty good. And really kind of comical. And again, check out the music video. Definitely worth your time there.
Yeah, Sammer really opened my eyes there. I like, whenever he came back, I'll never forget the feeling of shock when he was like, this movie is problematic. And I'm like, wait, how is St. Elmo's Fire problematic? It can't be. And then he starts rattling things off and I'm like, oh, yeah. Ooh, yeah, you're right. Wait, again, a measure of how far we've come.
Yes.
You have to look back in order to understand how far you've come. Like, it's probably frowned upon now to drive in the snow in your friend's brand new car to hijack a woman you barely know's lovely weekend to getaway date. Like, that's probably frowned upon in this day and age. But in the 80s,
I guess.
Grand romantic gesture. Grand romantic gesture.
Grand, yes.
Well, when we're speaking of grand romantic gestures, we're going to go now to just like pure teenage lust with our last with this next pick here is one that I think really stands on its own in that category. And you might think, if I'm going to tease the movie, it's Top Gun, except I'm not talking about Take Your Breath Away or Take My Breath Away. I'm talking about the best song for the best scene in a movie ever, Playing with the Boys, Kenny Loggins from Top Gun. It's really like the only reason you need to watch Top Gun from my perspective.
I skipped right over. We skipped right over Danger Zone too, but by Kenny Loggins, right? Like, so again, Kenny Loggins, king of the '80s soundtrack. I feel like we had to mention Top Gun from an '80s movie soundtrack standpoint, and it was tough leaving those songs, right, including this one off the battle. But yeah, when it came to bringing songs to this playlist, I was like, you know what? I'm going to hit Playing with the Boys. Funny thing, this song is like 6.5 minutes long.
I wish it was 16 and a half minutes if it would make the scene in the movie that long. Are you kidding me? Like, I was like 13 or 12 or 13, I think, when this movie came out. And like, I can just remember literally being in the movie theater. This comes on. And if there's anyone in the world that hasn't seen the original Top Gun, this is when the 4 main characters are playing volleyball on the beach. It's Val Kilmer, Rick Rossovich, Tom Cruise, obviously, and Anthony Edwards, like shirtless, manning out, playing volleyball. It's like maybe the definition of toxic masculinity, like all in like let's not have Sammer tell us about how problematic Top Gun is.
Yeah, probably
or how
not.
Problematic my conversation about this song is.
That's fair as well. Also, people, once you see Val Kilmer in that scene, don't go Google Val Kilmer now. Okay, just go ahead and stay in that scene. That's what Val Kilmer looks like. Okay,
it is. Live there with him.
But this is such a fun, ridiculous song. And when it comes to, we talked so much about songwriting during the battle, but I mean, this one is just such nothing. We're just having fun playing with the boys. And it's just, hey, Kenny, we need a song for this scene with this inexplicable, like just no relation to the plot scene, where we're going to have these guys play 2-on-2 beach volleyball for 5 minutes. And it's like, yep, I got your back. And here it is.
And for that, I have to say thank you.
Thank you, Kenny.
Thank you, Kenny. For all of the ladies emerging in bikinis from pools and shower scenes and like all of the 80s love. There was a whole genre of Porky's and whatever, Revenge of the Nerds, even Caddyshack, a little bit of these dude objectifying women 80s movies. So I'm going to take the objectification of those 4 shirtless hunks in Top Gun.
Jen, you maybe inadvertently provided the perfect segue to your first pick, because it's from the movie Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which features an iconic scene of Phoebe Cates emerging from the swimming pool. And you picked this. I love this song, and this was definitely on my list before I had to cut it, but Somebody's Baby by Jackson Browne.
Yes, at a different time. I love Moving in Stereo, the Cars song that Phoebe, I almost said Phoebe Bridgers, that Phoebe Cates. It would be a different movie with Phoebe Bridgers.
Very different.
I kind of, boy genius, run with that. Do what you will. Yes. They're magic. Boy genius is magic. They can do anything with that. If we go back to Somebody's Baby, Jackson Browne, this again is one of those movies that when we talk about worlds colliding, anybody that's ever listened to the show at all can probably gather that my youth is sort of bookended by soundtracks from John Hughes movies and soundtracks from Cameron Crowe movies, right? That's sort of how my musical prowess is bookended with those 2, soundtrack genres, in addition to everything that my parents exposed me to and the classic rock I love and all of the things. But those were really seminal creators for me. And so I think that I love Fast Times at Ridgemont High, not because Cameron Crowe directed it or started it, but because it was based on a piece that he wrote for Rolling Stone magazine, where he literally actually this might have just been its standalone book, but he disguised himself as a high school student in California and kind of went back and wrote a piece about what it's like, and they made Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And so again, when you're thinking about quintessential 80s movies, and if my daughter was going to an 80s party and needed a reference point, I would tell her to watch Fast Times at Ridgemont High and watch Footloose, right? Those are the 2 that you need that are going to give you everything to be ready for your 80s party.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. And I love this movie. It says and I love this song, right? It's so great. And the scene in the movie where this pops up, where, she's getting ready for a date. It ends up kind of being sad, but it's a great song. Don't let that.
It is a great song.
And it is a memorable scene, right?
It is a memorable scene.
This is a don't let Sammer watch this movie. But it's, I do appreciate the movie though, just generally, because it does a good job of juggling kind of low stakes and high stakes storylines kind of all at the same time, and making the low stakes stuff like sometimes the characters think that's more important than it is, and then the high stakes stuff don't hit them until later. And so I just think it's a really good recreation of high school in that sense.
It
and
is.
Not just high school in the 80s. Certainly there were things of that era, but I mean, there's a through line to where I'm sure even your daughter could watch this and be like, yeah, this is a pretty good representation, at least emotionally, of high school.
Well, and of the crowds too. I think that's something that my daughter certainly identifies with in any of these, whether it's 16 Candles or The Breakfast Club or Fast Times at Ridgemont High, like any of these sort of teen movies set in the 80s where, there's the stoners, there's I think in Fast Times specifically, like they have the whole contingent of girls that dress like Pat Benatar, right?
Oh,
it's like
right.
when I pull up,
Yes.
when I pull up at Ivy's high school, I'm like, oh, here's the Billie Eilish contingency. Like, oh, here's the Olivia Rodrigo contingency. Like, oh, there's the girl in red crowd over there. Like you can kind of see too, like what's happening.
That's amazing. Yeah. No,
So,
totally.
yeah.
Totally.
I just think that this is a good one for, again, time and place.
Yes. Now, your next pick, and I really appreciated that you included this one because this is kind of an underrated, like people don't necessarily identify this with the movie, but it's Cruel Summer by Bananarama.
Yeah, I'm going to say that again because people are going to double take because it's my show. So we have to reiterate that it is Cruel Summer by Bananarama.
Oh, right.
I'm sorry, listeners.
Not Taylor
not
Swift.
T Swift. Not my girl. Like we'll talk about, again, I'll do a whole other show about just that
Different
song.
Different song. Yes.
But if we're dialing it back to the 80s, this one was a great one. And yeah, it is funny that I think that, and that's part of why I included this one, is that I think people extract it from the Karate Kid because it wasn't written for the Karate Kid. It was just put in there again as like a time and place marker. But it does happen at such not an important part of the movie, I guess, but in a prominent part of the movie. And I was always like, I wonder why this didn't get more traction as being connected with Karate Kid. But I think that it's just like it's such a good song, and it especially for what's going on in that movie. Like this poor kid is just being bullied and just all the time tortured by the Cobra Kai guys. And the song kind of sets it up before it really gets bad for him. You kind of get a song that's telling you like this is maybe not going to go down super well for our boy Daniel LaRusso.
No, not at all. And you're right. Like I think most people just connect. All they think about is the karate and the crane kick and all of that in the movie. But yeah, like this is one that I remember years after, and I don't know how many times I had seen Karate Kid, and then it finally hit me that like, wait, that's Cruel Summer. Like, how is that possible that this is part of the soundtrack? But yeah, it's a great song, and you're right, kind of the perfect song for I think it's in the beach scene in the movie.
Yeah, it's when they're playing soccer on the beach. Yeah.
So yeah, great addition to that movie, but also love that you called it out here on our cutting room floor.
And Bananarama, I don't think they get enough love. The Bangles kind of like overshadowed them a little bit. And then I think Bananarama's other big hit was Venus, I think, right?
Yes, which is a remake. Yeah.
Yes. But I feel like this song is like a quintessential 80s that I had hoped we could include, but just didn't make the cut. And then this next one too. Oh, this was a hard one.
Oh yeah. I mean, this one, and we referenced this on the battle because another song from this movie was included, but this time you threw in Pretty in Pink by the Psychedelic Furs.
Yeah. Of course we did, the OMD song. That's the finale to this movie. But I think we discussed this even on the episode. I think we're in agreement that this is the better song from that movie. But we were focused on our love song division, and so we needed to pull a different kind of song. But this one I just think is so good. I love the Psychedelic Furs. Obviously, like here's John Hughes surfacing again. I just think that I would love to do a whole episode. One day I will. One day I'll get someone on, and we'll do a whole episode about John Hughes movies, and the songs from his movies, because there are so many. Like, for me, it's hard to even boil down. Like, I love a lot of the music from Some Kind of Wonderful, but I'm like, oh, I'm going to be the only one that remembers those songs. So that's not great for our first battle, you know? So this was one where I think people probably would have been familiar with this song and this movie. But I think that the OMD song just featured and fit better into what we were doing with season 1 of the battle. But I love this song. I love this one.
Yeah, people always, it's funny because the name of the movie is the title of this song, but people only think of If You Leave when they think of Pretty in Pink, right? Like, it's just a stronger association with that scene, I would imagine. But yeah, you're right. Like, I love this song, and I think it's a great song. I love that the title is Pretty in Pink, but it's kind of this sort of hard rocking kind of anthem. So yeah, just a great song here, and we had to call it out here because we definitely had referenced it previously and could have made the cut maybe in a different bracket or in a different battle, but just not quite there.
And I will say one thing that always, like, I don't know if bothered me is the right word, but maybe why I decided to go with If You Leave, for the first season of the battle and not this song, is that I was always, and again, I know this song was before the movie, but the song talks about Caroline. Caroline's doing this, Caroline's doing that. And in the movie, Molly Ringwald, who's the lead character, is named Andy. So I was like, well, so we couldn't really do anything about that. Like maybe we just like call her Caroline so it all works, or I don't know. Like that was always like a little bit of a disconnect for me.
Well, it is kind of funny to think about John Hughes and the Psychedelic Furs being so beholden to a name they just made up for what they were writing. Look, this fictional person's name is Andy. No, it's Caroline. Well,
we are not changing it.
We can't come to we can't compromise on that, I guess. But yeah, that's a great point to make. Yeah, the names don't match up.
The names don't match.
But of course, you were going to end on back-to-back John Hughes films here, right? So your last pick just missed. Okay, it's If You Were Here by Thompson Twins, and this is from 16 Candles, right?
It is, and this is also known as the song that ruined all of us. And by all of us, I mean like women, girls that were growing up that like have forever been delivered the false promise of Jake Ryan pulling up in the Porsche and bringing you your birthday cake in his mansion that his parents just happened to be away from,
by the
all
way,
of the things.
Like, how many high schoolers are driving Porsches? Like, even now, right? Like, that is few and far between, right?
Well, I mean, sadly, I wish it were more few and far between, because any parent, I'm like, have you not lived, mom and dad? Like, every kid wrecks their first car, every single kid. You hope it's a minor fender bender, right? But something's going down. So I'm like, I don't care if I had the most stupid money in the whole wide world. I'm never, ever giving a 16-year-old keys to a Porsche, ever. But yes, Jake Ryan did have it.
Even if I'm a billionaire, my kids are getting a Toyota Camry for their first car. I want them to kind of, you don't want your kids to peak in high school to where it's like, hey, that was the kid with the Porsche. And it's like, what's he up to now? Not driving a Porsche, right? It's like, I guess it didn't quite work out for him, right?
I saw him rolling in a Hyundai the other day.
Yeah. It's all downhill from there if you're giving them a Porsche at 16. So we'll go with something safe, something reliable. Okay, shout out to Toyota. Yeah. Not a sponsor yet, but good people of Toyota, give us a call. Okay,
come on, even Hyundai. We'll edit that last part out.
Right, we'll go back. We'll take all negative references to Hyundai out of the podcast. Okay, if Hyundai wants to sponsor us, neither here nor there. But you're right. Yes, 16 Candles. I love that you reference this movie because that's such a great movie. And I mean, this was kind of the big scene here. So yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, this wasn't, and I put this one on too because I think that this is one that's a little less listened to, maybe like a little. Whereas I think a lot of people have heard "Cruel Summer," they just aren't familiar with it being in Karate Kid. This is one where I think a lot of people have seen 16 Candles and they've heard this, but they've never really locked it in as a song, like a standalone song by the Thompson twins.
Right.
You know, people think of like Doctor Doctor or some of the other bigger Thompson twin songs.
Hold Me Now.
Hold Me Now. Yeah. And this is I think this is maybe my favorite Thompson Twins songs, actually. So if you've not gone, you know, if you haven't dug into the Thompson Twins, that great 80s band, this is one that can get you started, and you will be checking off 2 boxes because you will also have the big finale song from 16 Candles if you listen to this one as well. But also, just like I said, I think it's just a good standalone song, regardless of the psychological damage it did to my dating life from 1989 to 1997.
Yeah, you got past that though. I think I
moved on.
You're in good shape. I
moved on. I did. Well, Matt, this has been a fun one. Thank you so much for going back and revisiting all of the songs that we had to leave on the cutting room floor for our first season of The Battle. Maybe we'll get to go back at some point and revisit some of these. But for our listeners, if you have not gone to check out The Battle, please do. If you like today's playlist, The Battle's available on Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you stream. And again, this is season 1. We'll be back in a couple months with season 2 to be announced, where we will battle again. 16 songs will go head to head until we crown a winner. And as always, please be sure to follow, download, and share this show. If you love listening, please also drop us a review on Apple or Spotify. And last but not least, to stay informed on all things Super Awesome Mix and What Are You Listening To, be sure to follow us on Instagram at Super Awesome Mix. Thanks for listening, and please join me again next week to find your new favorite song.